Okay, so carrying on the theme of elm again. No, he wants it to fall. We're talking about a coffee table, bringing bits of wood together. There's another board of elm I've just put on the top of that. And then you might start and you think, well, that's a really looking interesting piece of wood, or pieces of wood. And you're getting close to what you might have as an abstract set of shells or whatever. But it's the same principle of just using the bits you've got to let your imagination run riot. Getting back to the little bits of wood that I'll be trying to sell down at Gippside this weekend, and I'll talk about that some more in a moment. If you find one of the burrs on the edge there, and you take a little bit more time, I've not rubbed the back off on this yet, but you can see that it's going to come back to life exactly as these pieces did underneath there. And then you find one of the knobbly bits, as people would call them. People who look at that and sort of say, wait, there's something in there. And that's because you're being drawn towards something that looks like a nose and a couple of eyes and maybe a mouth. So it's a face, alright? You turn it around another way, you'll see something else. But it's exactly the same principle. You're just using what you've got and seeing where you go with it. So if you put that on the top of that, and I hope it doesn't fall over because it's not very secure, you can see you're starting to actually do what some artists would call an installation. Just adding pieces together. Actually, Gormley, I think, was the one with the bricks, and he just used the same principle of bricks, but would do it with bits of wood as well. And I can see, just looking over your shoulder, Martin, that looks absolutely magnificent, set on the swirls of the back there. And I would always try and sell that as a piece of art, but I understand people don't always see things that way. Right, so that's the elm we talked about. I repeat, Gippside this weekend will be going down there, and I'll be trying to sell 20 pieces of this size of elm. On the back of every one I'll put the Artifactory stamp on it, and I'll add a little box and put a serial number on it. Now every one of these pieces of wood also tells a story, and when we can get the website up and running, working properly, then anybody who's got a piece of the wood will have a specific serial number relating to it, and it'll be, because I've been using it for years now, going back about 10 years, it'll be PVN, which stands for Pont Valley Network. 1 corresponding with January of 2016, 1 corresponding with the serial number sequence we've got on this, because there's bits coming in and out all the time, and that particular block of numbers from 1 to 20 within that monthly numbering system will correspond with the pieces of wood that I'm trying to sell. The idea is that if people want to get involved with this sort of thing, very, very simple. They needn't come here and try and work on a workshop, which is more of a bloody storeroom at the moment, but actually carry on working at a distance. That's where the E comes from in Artifactory. It's electronic, it's the internet. It's the internet and the internet within the internet. And that lets people just communicate at a distance. And I'm trying to sell every single piece of wood that I've got there for £50. And if I sold all 20, then that would give us a starting capital for a social enterprise that we've been trying to get going for years of about £1,000. That's exactly £1,000, isn't it? But at the end of the day, the idea is that you're getting something that you can add to later on, and you can carry on coming onto the World Wide Web, ledgatevillage.com, which is our home for the time being, and you can actually just correspond and communicate with other people without actually walking out in the freezing cold. And we'll always add little bits of history to that website. Okay, so that's the Artifactory and Caretakers. Getting back to the bits of elm again then. Doesn't need to be elm, but as I say, that specific block of numbers is for this particular batch of elm. You can do the same thing with any sort of wood you want to. If I take that out there for a moment, put it over there, and if you can see beyond coffee tables, then you can start to see that you can actually take the pieces of wood and you can arrange them any way you want. Have your own little art gallery inside your house. Starting off with a table piece or a cheese board, if you want that to be a cheese board or a chopping board, well, that's the simplest thing in the world. Whatever happens for £50, you're getting a nice piece of elm with the number stamped on the back. That's no more or less than, excuse me. It's no more, no less than starting off with where it started with me, if you like. My name's on there, David Shields, Artifactory, Clifton House, Ledgate, Concept, DH87PY. And another stamp down below that will basically show what I call the unique identifying reference of that particular piece. Anytime you add to the piece, you can add to that. You can carry on telling its story. But getting back to my point, if you wanted that to be a chopping board, that's straightforward. Tucked away in the corner over there, I've got a bandsaw which just about works. All you've got to do is take off the top, if you wanted to, and you have another form of display on that. Again, principle is you using what you've got. I much prefer to see arty things myself, like. But if you actually want to arrange them in different ways, you can start to see that, like I say, people like Gormley and Goldsworthy and David Mack do things called repetitive art, and it's no different. It's just taking pieces of wood, trying to make something out of them. A bit abstract if you like, but there's still something there, something interesting in it. Alright. You take another piece of tree and you chop it a different bloody way. Again, another one of Gary Welford's creations. But earlier on this year, we made a set of stocks to go on the village green, if it ever gets there. They were made of oak and ash and totally authentic working stocks. And we couldn't get it put up on the village green because it's a bit of a mess at the moment. But the idea was simply that if we couldn't get the stocks put up on the village green, we'd let them go around the other villages. So those stocks were used by various people, various charities raising money, and I was quite happy to do that. In fact, that's what it's there for, it's to actually raise money for worthy events. But if you look hard enough at any one of the village websites around here, you'll see this piece of wood displayed on the top of a set of stocks. You can see where the holes were drilled on the side to hold them in place. But anyway, they were storage for the winter, so this piece I brought back, and like I've said, if I spin it round, you see that the back's as good as the front. In fact, some people might think the back's better than the front. And again, you're just displaying it, trying to find things to do with it. So again, that would make a nice table piece if they wanted to. And you could say, well, it's not going to stand up straight because it's got the nuts and knobs on the back. Simplest thing in the world is just to rub those off and flatten them. If you don't want to do that, you use these things, which is just the stretchers, which basic principle of physics is if you just move those various points along there, they'll hold the piece of wood on the vertical, as it were, and give you a horizontal working surface. Then you can add to that. Exactly the same thing, making a putty coffee table if you wanted to. Just by using the same pieces of wood, you can make it an oak or any one of the salvage hardwoods we use. And if you pan around there, you'll see we've got absolutely shitloads. Sorry, did I say shitloads? I meant shed loads of wood. That is just getting in the way of me now. I retire formally tomorrow, 65th birthday, and I don't want to be sitting with all this wood in my shed. We need to set it up somewhere else, which is another story again. But getting back to this. Same piece of tree, again courtesy of Gary Welford, which has been absolutely magnificent. Work it a different way, and you start to see different things coming out. You will always get these little cracks and splits because it's green wood essentially when we start, and even though it's now well seasoned they're there, and I wouldn't like to hide them away because it's part of the story of the piece. I tidy things up a bit. If you look at that, and you look at that, you can see that it was just part of a branch that's been cut a particular way. You can shape it any way you want on a bandsaw. But fundamentally, there's something more in there than firewood now because it's had a bit of effort expanded on it. And I've said this before and I'll say it again, but I have no fingerprints left. Fingerprints have gone. Could come in handy if I was a bit nefarious. But that's just through rubbing the hell out of the wood over many, many years. I don't want it to be wasted. Right, next pieces. Same principle. Working with what you've got. Back again to Gary Welford. Those pieces of wood you saw down there, the crosscut branches of elm, you can do exactly the same thing but using something else. It's a spouted beech. And if you just walk around this and you pick up the actual spouting within that, it's beautiful. It's like a picture within the wood. And that was there all the time. All you had to do was rub it to bring it out. I'll probably also take a few of these down to Gibbside. Same principle, if they wanted to. For £50, buy a piece of wood, decide what you want to do with it, carry on talking to us through our website, and will actually either A, give you suggestions for keeping your cheese board nice and clean and tidy, or will show you how to do the things a bit differently and a bit better. I hope it's not going to fall over. But all wood out of the firewood pile. And on here, still, this is my souvenir piece. It's the first piece of firewood that I got of Gary about 10 years ago. And I marked it up, firewood, because that's what it was then. And it might still be firewood now, but I don't know. Same principle. You take a piece of wood. In Gary's case, when he actually cut the wood, he used his saw wheel. And any piece that gave me two sides, I could then work it away and just let nature take its course from there. The colours carried on coming. You can use that as a base again, and you can make crosses. You can make out you want. Or if you don't want to, you can simply take an ordinary piece of wood, which is gnawed and knacked, still got the original sort of spalt marks on there, and you can just polish up the little bits to give it a bit of character, put it down on the table. This is all going to fall over. Excuse me. And just do simple things with the pieces of wood. Anybody who looks at that is going to say, what is that? But anybody will see a mushroom in there or a toadstool.